Good evening and welcome to the news on NTA International. I am Elizabeth Omori and we are beaming live from the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Now let's take the headlines. President Muhammadu Buhari postpones National Sports Festival, considers overall interest of health security priority. Health Minister confirms another case of coronavirus infection. As Secretary to the Government of the Federation inaugurates Presidential Task Force on COVID control. Senate to amend 2020 Appropriation Act following devastating impacts of coronavirus on global economy. Thanks for joining us. President Muhammadu Buhari has ordered the postponement of the forthcoming National Sports Festival scheduled to begin later this month in Benin, Edo State. The president, who gave the order after a meeting with the Minister of Sports, Sunday Dari, and the Minister of State for Health, Dr. Oloromibe Mamora, said the action is in the overall interest of national health security. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
Strategic meeting between President Muhammadu Buhari as well as the Ministers of Health and Sports critically analyzed whether or not it is safe for the National Sports Festival Edo 2020 to go on as planned in the face of the coronavirus pandemic. The president, who was briefed on both the preparations for the festival as well as efforts at containing COVID-19 in the country, maintained that it is too risky for the sporting fiesta to continue as planned.
Mr. President took the decision and gave the directive that the National Sports Festival, Christian Edo 2020, should be postponed as a precautionary move against the spread of COVID-19.
The Minister of State for Health, Dr. Olorunimbe Mamora, described the postponement of Edo 2020 as inevitable.
Is a possibility of people carrying the virus even without knowing, what we call asymptomatic people. That is, they carry it, but they don't even know because they are not manifesting symptoms. And what we know so far is that up to 80–81% of people will either be asymptomatic, that is, not showing any symptoms, or where they show symptoms, the symptoms will just be mild to moderate. And this is a major source of what we call community transmission. So the principle of social distancing has to be respected. That is, preventing or advising against congregation of large number of people.
A new date for the National Sports Festival will be announced in due course. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
Still on COVID-19, the Minister of Health, Dr. Osaigi Ihanire, said a 30-year-old Nigerian woman has been confirmed positive to the coronavirus infection in Lagos. Dr. Ihanire said the new patient returned to the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, from the United Kingdom and was placed under treatment after testing positive.
Called contact tracing, which means that we're going to find out everything about her travel pattern, her travel history, and be able to follow up on what we need to follow up on. She did fill a self-reporting form when she arrived. She was tested at the airport, and according to the information we have, she seemed to have had no symptoms at that time she was tested. But we have retrieved the form because the form she filled when she came is not lost, it's being examined. And as she's in hospital, we ask her questions.
The health minister said the procedures on ground to prevent the spread of coronavirus have so far been effective. He, however, wants Nigerians to remain vigilant about their health and to avoid large gatherings. Meanwhile, the government has inaugurated a presidential task force on the control of COVID-19 in Nigeria. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, while inaugurating the task force in Abuja, gave members the mandate to strengthen the national response strategy for COVID-19, particularly in the areas of testing, containment and management of the disease.
private sector, faith-based organizations, civil societies, donors, and partners. And 3, build awareness among the populace. And 4, direct the deployment of any relevant national asset when necessary. 5, lay a foundation for scientific and medical research to address all emerging infectious diseases. And 6, advise government on the declaration of national emergency as part of the containment measures when necessary.
Still on containment of COVID-19, the federal government says it will explore all alternatives towards ensuring that the nation's citizens are fully protected in the face of coronavirus pandemic. President Muhammadu Buhari, who stated this at a briefing session with members of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council, said Nigeria has foreseen the attendant economic problems. Details of this report will come in our subsequent bulletin. Into other matters, President Muhammadu Buhari has promised to continued support and assistance of his administration to the new governor of Bayelsa State, Senator Droye Diri, in his efforts at maintaining peace and stability in the state, as well as enhancing the livelihood of his people. This was while granting audience to the governor in his office. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo tells us more.
It was the first formal engagement between President Muhammadu Buhari and the new Bayelsa State Governor, Senator Droye Diri. The meeting, held behind closed doors, lasted about 30 minutes. Governor Diri told newsmen shortly after that the meeting was fruitful.
Since I resumed as a governor of Bayelsa State, I have not come to see the father of the country, the father of our nation. I just did that. Mr. President received me as one of his sons, as a state governor, and the reception was very warm. And he went ahead to advise that he was happy that I came, and I was happy with the way I have started. And in fact, he went on to say he has read about all the statements that I have made and the security so far in Bayelsa, and that he promised that as one of his sons, as a state like Bayelsa that is critical to the security and peace in the Niger Delta, he was prepared to also work with me.
A beneficiary of a judicial decision by the nation's apex court, Governor Droye Diri of the PDP came to power on the 14th of February this year. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Into political mandates, National Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Adams Oshiomhole, says the party is not divided. He assured that members of the National Working Committee will work together as members of Progressives family by engaging stakeholders to come up with quality ideas that will add value to the present administration. The National Working Committee meeting has been attended by members including the newly appointed Deputy National Chairman South of the party, Senator Abiola Ajimobi, and Inuwa Abdulkadri, National Vice Chairman Northwest, who has been on suspension. This is the first official function by the party's National Working Committee after about 2 weeks of leadership tussle. And out to legal matters, the Supreme Court has reserved judgment for a later date, the ruling in the application filed by APC candidates seeking a review of its previous judgment, which voided the party's participation in the 2019 elections in Zamfara State. Judiciary correspondent Vera Chumba, who was at the Supreme Court, has details.
The 5-man panel of justices led by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, heard the appeal. Counsel to the applicant, Robert Clark, SAN, who withdrew one of his applications without opposition, asked the court to set aside the consequential order that made it possible for the PDP, which was not a party in the APC Zamfara dispute, to benefit. He argued that the Supreme Court lacked jurisdiction and ought to have made an order directing the APC and INEC to conduct fresh primaries and elections in Zamfara State instead of voiding the party's victory. Counsel to Kabiru Marafa, Mike Uzokeme, urged the court to dismiss the appeal with punitive cause on the ground that it amounts to asking the court to sit on appeal over its judgment. Uzokeme argued that under sections 235 of the Constitution, 87 of the Electoral Act, and other 8 Rule 16 of the Supreme Court rules, the decision of the court is final and cannot be reviewed by any guise. He further argued that the application is an abuse of court process, especially given the recent decisions of the court in Imo and Bayelsa states. He asked the court not to accede to the request.
We are not challenging the judgment of the Supreme Court. We believe in that judgment. But what we are saying is that the consequential order that judgment now made was wrongly made out of jurisdiction.
That the Supreme Court has the powers, both inherent and otherwise, to make consequential orders in a case so as to do the justice in a matter.
The Supreme Court had on May 24th validated the judgment of the Court of Appeal Sokoto Division, which ruled that APC failed to conduct valid primaries in Zamfara. The 5-man panel of justices led by Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, is expected to deliver its ruling on a date to be communicated to the parties. In Abuja, Viera Chumuba, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Federal High Court has fixed 17th of April 2020 for ruling on application for variation of bail conditions sought by the former chairman of the Pension Reform Task Team, Abdurrashid Maina. Correspondent Austin Ayebe reports on the proceedings at the court.
The adjournment came after a long argument on 2 motions filed by the Defense and Prosecution Counsel on the legal provisions for bail variation. Parts of the argument of the Prosecution Counsel contained in the affidavit is that the first defendant, Abdurrashid Maina, through intelligence has allegedly threatened to kill individuals involved in the prosecution, or which granting him a liberal bail conditions stands to jeopardize the lives of people targeted. This, the Prosecution Counsel Mohammed Abubakar said, is evident by the way he harasses people whenever he is in court. The Defense Counsel, however, urged the court to discountenance the prayer of the prosecution, saying the allegation of death threat lacks credible evidence, as the prosecution has not been able to come up with verifiable evidence to show that the defendant wants to kill him, as the burden of proof lies on him. Justice Okon Abang, upon hearing the argument, said ruling on the motion shall be delivered on the 9th of April 2020. Meanwhile, hearing on the substantive case continues tomorrow, with ruling to be given on the argument on admissibility of documents from Fidelity Bank PLC sought to be tendered through the 6th witness. The defendant, who was granted bail in November 2019, has to remain in prison custody for failing to meet the set bail conditions given by the court, even after the first variation. From the Federal High Court, Abuja, Austin Ayebe, NTA News.
And away from the judiciary, Minister of Environment Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar, on receipt of the regional stabilization strategy for the Lake Chad Basin, has pledged positive action to restore livelihoods and the environment affected by the lake, which is fast shrinking. Onenge Fineface reports.
Lake Chad is drying up. From 25,000 square kilometers, the lake has shrunk to about 4,000 square kilometers. As the lake reduces, so does economic activities in communities, states and countries along its banks. Reducing economic fortunes has birthed several crises, mostly insurgency and banditry. To mitigate these, Lake Chad Basin Commission came up with a regional stabilization strategy, which was validated in August 2018.
Which was developed by the Lake Chad Basin Commission with the support of the African Union and the UNDP. Now, this strategy is very important. The Ministry of Environment is central to the implementation of the strategy.
For positive action, the document was presented to Nigeria's Minister of Environment, Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar, who says interministerial collaboration is key to implementing the strategy.
This is something that we'll have to do until the end. There is only one option, that is for us to stabilize, to restore the livelihood of that area, because that will go in a long way in curbing the insecurity that is already part of that problem.
Policy thrusts of the strategy include security, disarmament, humanitarian assistance, empowerment and inclusion of women and youth, among others. In Abuja, Onengiye Fine Face, NTA News.
If you just joined us, this is the news on NTA International, reaching you live from Abuja. Let's take a break now. More reports ahead when we return. Stay with us.
That channel where you watch just now don't waka, no panic.
Can you me no panic?
You go do it by yourself like ABC. Oh yeah, press the menu button on top your remote. Scroll up and down till you see Information Central. Then press OK.
Press OK.
Check the signal strength and quality. If the signal strength and quality pass 70, make you press the exit button, go back. Go advanced options, then choose installation, then go to reset and press OK.
Press OK.
Wow, now you sef fit catch all those channels wey be one miss road by yourself. Yes, make your group for no loss. You see as I do am, abi?
And I see as I do am.
Go TV, live it, love it.
And I see as we do am.
Glad to know you're still there. President Muhammadu Buhari has given assurances of the federal government's commitment to partner with the private sector on science, technology and innovation towards ensuring that the sector plays the very important role in advancing the frontiers of knowledge for nation building. This was at the opening of the 2020 Science, Technology and Innovation Expo ongoing in Abuja. Justin Bemwe reports.
It is common knowledge that at home and abroad, Nigerians have always demonstrated remarkable ingenuity and inventiveness. We know that with the right environment and policy framework, there is no limit to how far Nigerian innovation can go.
It was heartwarming for the president to see the creativity and innovativeness of Nigerians. The expo has created a platform for convergence of researchers, innovators, inventors, and investors. This is with the sole aim of commercializing research findings to be converted to needed products and services. One of such instances the president inspected at the expo was a stand with exhibitions of inventions from the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI.
Whatever we come with it the previous years, we don't bring them. We bring new things. Today you have seen ranging from oil, shelling machines. You have seen new innovations in terms of standby power. Not necessarily generators this time around, but even renewable. You have seen the latest innovation in terms of technical laboratory equipment for tertiary institutions. Already from the business plans we have developed, we have seen people asking questions, and we have already selected team from our technology business development unit to interact with them to enlighten them more. In fact, already our smart meter for metering electricity energy, people are already bidding. They have been showing interest, and it's been demonstrated here today.
And with such an array of ingenuity and potential of Nigerian scientists on display like that of NASENI and others, the president has called on the private sector for direct investment and partnership to help the nation achieve its goals.
The attainment of government objectives cannot be achieved without the support of the private sector, which plays an important role in nurturing innovation in Nigeria. The private sector should perform this role by directly investing as well as partnering with our universities and research institutions.
The 2020 Science, Technology and Innovation Expo, organized by the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology, comes with a theme enhancing the growth of a diversified economy through science and technology. In Abuja, Justin Bemunyi, NTA News.
And from science and technology, we now move to legislative matters. The Senate is considering the amendment of the 2020 Appropriation Act, which it passed last year, December, following the impact of the coronavirus on the global economy. This was contained in the interim report of the Senate Joint Committees on Finance, Appropriation and National Planning. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo reports.
While Nigeria's Minister of Health is busy with precautionary and preventive measures against the coronavirus, the Nigerian Senate is busy working out legislative framework that will cushion the effect of the virus on the nation's economy as a result of the sharp fall in global oil price. Its committees on finance, appropriation and national planning were mandated by the Senate to engage relevant government ministries and agencies.
The downsizing of the Appropriation Act as passed by the National Assembly is inevitable.
While personnel costs at all times must be met, we can agree on 80% or 60% funding of overheads.
I mean, there are certain things that we need to do. We need to look at cost of governance. We need to look at a lot of duplicate agencies that we have.
The Joint Committee called on the federal government to transmit the Petroleum Industry Bill to the National Assembly for consideration.
That the revenue generating agencies must be alive to their responsibility in line with the Fiscal Responsibility Act passed by the National Assembly.
Bills that seek to amend the Child Right Act to prohibit persons convicted of rape from working with children, sponsored by Senator Ibikunle Amosun, and the one by Senator Ezenwa Oyewuchi, for the provision of certain rights and privileges for the older persons to ensure their socio-economic well-being past second reading.
As a day will hardly pass without reading or viewing the media cases of sexual assault suffered by Nigerian children,
including the freedom of older persons to make individual choices, respect for interdependence and caring relationships of older persons.
Let us be conscious of the fact that there is a segment of our society that needs extra care.
Just like it's done outside this country, where if you go to the bus, you find out that the old people have their own place designated.
The legislators have advised the Nigerian Correctional Services to adequately profile inmates and separate them accordingly to avoid lumping first offenders with hardened criminals. Senator Uche Ekwunife moved the motion. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
And for trending business news, let's join on NTA Fine Face.
The Debt Management Office has raised an alarm that the outbreak of coronavirus pandemic is threatening the arrangement put in place to service the nation's debts. The DMO explained that Nigeria's total public debt grew from $17.35 billion in 2006 to $85.4 billion, which is about 26.2 trillion naira in September 30, 2019. The Director General of the DMO, Patience Onia, put the total domestic debt at about 18 trillion naira, which is 68.5% of the total public debt. The DMO boss said the federal government had put in place necessary arrangements to service the nation's debt, but revenue projection of the federal government is facing threats with the dwindling revenue target on the heels of COVID-19, which has affected oil prices. She said the only way to effectively manage the debt profile of the country was with improved revenue drive. Meanwhile, with the international oil benchmark Brent crude falling below the $30 per barrel mark on Monday, the oil-dependent Nigerian economy has come under more pressure from the sharp drop in government expected revenue. The coronavirus pandemic has worsened, leading government and businesses to shut down as the global economy appeared to be headed towards certain recession. Brent, against which Nigeria's crude is priced, dipped by $4.01 to $29.84 per barrel on Monday, its lowest since January 2016. The Central Bank of Nigeria Monday announced policy measures to tackle the impact of COVID-19 on businesses and the nation's economy. That's it on Business News. I'm Onengiye Fine Face.
Now to sports. Nigeria Women Football League gets new kickoff dates. Kene Imagbodike has details on sports.